Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan from the Rocks and Stocks News, and we have one of our sponsors on today in Ramp Metals. They had some exciting news out today that they're waited for permits to drill and follow up on the fantastic discovery hole that they made of a grassroots discovery with 70 some grams of gold over 7 meters. And so now they get a chance to swing the bat again. Jordan, thank you very much for joining me today.
Hey, Alan, thanks for having me on again today. And yeah, look, it's a great time. We just got our permits, and that's what we're really excited about here at Ramp is always getting out in the field. It seems each time we're out there, we find something new. So we finally get to follow up on that amazing gold target.
And you guys are you in our past interview, you had said your drill contractors are all lined up and ready to roll. And I think if my memory serves me correctly, in your news release, you said they're going to be mobilizing in 2 days or something like that.
Yeah, so Garrett and Brett and a few of the team members are going to head up on the 12th here. They're going to start cutting the drill pads right away. And I think the drill rig will be mobilizing in about 7 days from now or less. So the drills can be turning next week.
Yeah, and you guys, well, your youth is showing a little bit there, Jordan. Well, the combination of your youth, enthusiasm, and what you have to be enthusiastic about. It's very rare these days to make grassroots discoveries. And when you do it on your first hole and you come back with 70 some grams of gold over 7 meters, that's catching lightning in a bottle, so to speak.
For sure. I think we had a bit of lady luck on our side when we were exploring for battery metals at the time. But our motto has always been grassroots and looking in areas that no one has really been before. And that's what like the Rotten Stone domain as a whole is really all about. It's very underexplored in Saskatchewan. Everyone talks about uranium in the Athabasca, potash, and even the Larange Gold Belt back in the day. But no one's really spent too much money in the Rotten Stone domain. And Garrett and Brett, who actually live in Saskatchewan, they've always been hunting for areas in their backyard. And I think it goes to show what a little prospecting can find.
And that's called the Rotten Stone domain because there's a Rotten Stone mine that's not far from you guys, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the whole story really began. Back in the 70s and 80s, that old Rotten Stone mine put out some of the highest grade nickel, copper, and PGs at the time. So we even though we were looking for nickel because it had that 3.26% high grade nickel, everyone was always chasing like or thinking, where's the rest of it and chasing it because I think they only produced 40,000 tons and to get that high grade, people are wondering, okay, where's it coming from? So there are these regional structures that went down from the old Rotten Stone mine and then into this eye-looking structure. And that eye-looking structure, we always thought looked very similar to the Sirius resource eye structure over in Australia that they called the Nova Bollinger or the Nova Eye. And that's because it had these beautiful conductors inside, call it this magnetic eye with the Christmas tree lighting up in the middle. So that's how we got Mark Bennett, who founded that company, to join our company as an advisor because he just couldn't believe the similarities. And I think you could speak to it more, Alan, as a geologist, but just all the structure that's going on within this eye, and like these cross structures that all meet, and that's usually where you find mineralization.
Yeah, because what it does is, and by the way, I'm not a geologist, I'm only a 30-year experienced explorationist, but
Enough to be dangerous, though.
well, I've had some of the great mentors in geology, geophysics, and geochemistry. So they've educated me well. You're not the only one that thinks I'm a geologist. Even geologists think I'm a geologist. But what it comes down to is when you have these structures, that prepares the rock for then the fluids to come up into and deposit into or make deposits of metals. So structures are very important. In fact, some geologists, they say structure, 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 because that's what prepares the rock for the depositing of metals. And what is very interesting to me at your gold discovery is you have a north-south structure, and then at the top, like about probably 400 or 500 meters from where you've drilled, there's an east-west structure coming along, and right there is a hinge. And that is an ideal looking location to look for the more mineralization. So about 450 or 500 meters down, that's where you hit your high grade gold. And so this structural story and the really has me excited because looking at the drill core, I kind of think you guys are probably just clipped the edge of something. And if the edge is so highly mineralized, that's a phenomenal target.
Yeah, and that's what me and the team have been thinking, or what the team came up with. Both Garrett and Brett, they know one of the geologists from the CB mine from SSR, which is a gold mine here in Saskatchewan, and they were saying the rocks look similar to like their footwall, right? So it'd be interesting if we were actually drilling down dip, right? And we just clipped it. So this time around, we'll spin the drill around and fan it into that target area, and hopefully that will give us a better indication on how big this thing can be.
Yeah, and it sounded like from my chats with your geologist that you guys wanted to get to the structure and you got to it and through it, and that's where you hit the high grade.
Yeah, so we hit the high grade about 220 meters down, and like I was saying earlier, we're targeting those nickel sulfides, which I think it started at the conductor started at about 50 meters down. We got through it at about 140 meters, started to hit this quartz diorite, and then the gold was at 220. And then we did hit traces along the way, and I think 7 grams per ton closer to the end of the hole around, I think it was 310 meters or so down. So it was still a bit open, which makes me think if it's like haloing in and out that we are on the edge of something, and that's what Garrett likes to say. So look, this is a very exciting time to like really get back out there and start exploring. We did do some additional prospecting because as I was mentioning before, it's like we went out there and we targeted these conductors, and we did it very unconventional where we targeted that with the structure, the magnetics as well, and drilled through that. But then we never really walked the property to actually like smash some rocks off at the surface and map the bedrock and look for trends, look for these faults, right? So we did get out there for 14 days, and that's where we discovered this potential new copper
Yeah.
discovery as well. And that's about 7 kilometers away from Ranger. So our property is situated, you have Rogue in the middle of the eye. We have Ranger, which is to the east, southeast, and then to the northwest is Rush. And you have like a magmatic structure until you get to the edge of Rogue, or the northern edge. And then it looks like this might be a VMS, this Rush target. So there's just a mixture of awesome, like awesome potential structures on this property, and really you just need to go out there and test them all.
Well, I love VMS deposits because they can be very rich. I don't know if you know, but Rio Tinto's was originally called Rio Tinto Zinc. And they got that name because the Rio Tinto mine in Spain was where they got their mining start. And that's a VMS belt that goes for, it's called the Iberian Pyrite Belt.
Hmm.
And it goes from Spain over into Portugal. And Lundin actually has the Neves Corvo. I think they might be selling it actually, but you just get these series of VMS deposits along a belt. And so where you find one, you often find others. And sometimes they can be upwards of 100 million tons. Sometimes they're just little pods of, 5 to 20 million tons kind of thing. But they have nice rich grades of silver and zinc, as well as copper and gold. And
Yeah, and to go to your point there, so we hit 1.6% copper, 0.78 gold, 115 grams of silver with zinc and lead in there as well, which makes us believe it is a VMS. And we just actually were flying some geophysics as well, right? Because the rush target was outside of our newly staked claims, right? So once we made that Ranger discovery, we went and staked all around our property. Originally, we only had, I think, 8,000 hectares, and then now we have 32,000 hectares, which is
yeah, because your
pretty,
claims used to just go right beside Ranger, right? And now you almost
yeah, it
doubled
basically
it.
just looked like the shape of Texas with our eye in the middle, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, we wanted to make sure we had all the trends, all the structures. And with that geophysics, we brought on Steve Belch as well, who's currently the VPX of Canada Nickel, but also 40 plus years of experience on the geophysics side, even designing some of his own systems. So he's helping us target not only Rush, but also to look for structures around Ranger, which we just finished flying the priority areas, and we will give an update to the market on those once the mapping and everything's finalized. But
Well, I
he's really
can pretty
yeah.
much guarantee you what he's going to see in the geophysics because I've done some structural analysis on your project, and there is a distinct north-south structure, and you've drilled right beside it, and then you follow it a little further, and there's a east-west coming in, and there's a hinge there. So
Yeah, and
that's
maybe we're gonna find something on that hinge, and like who knows, right? And the key is
well,
really
actually, all the
testing
way
it.
from your where you've drilled all the way up, and then it can also continue over to the east, which gets
Yeah,
you,
maybe it loops
or to the
around the
west.
lake, right? Around the
Exactly.
lake to the east. Yeah.
There's a
So
hinge there, and that's perfect rock preparation. Another interesting thing about your VMS target that gets me quite excited is that the way that it's called zonation of grade. So when you're right at the source, you'll have a copper and gold zone. As you get distal or away from that, the it becomes silver and lead zinc. And so the fact that you're finding all of those metals tells me that you're probably right at the near the source or right at the transition between the copper gold side and the silver lead zinc side. So, and if you find one, good chance you're going to find more there.
yeah, that's very interesting. I've never heard someone say it that way yet, but like that's what gets us excited, right? And we had that right at surface, you had that malachite staining, which was a good indication of this. And um, I think the surface would be a lot more weathered too, right? So in theory, you as you drill, you it might be semi-mass at that surface. You might drill down and get into that massive sulfide zone, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, because that's where it's coming from, right? If, well, based on the metals you have in the geochemistry, it sounds like a VMS, and so you would have massive sulfide somewhere there because that's where that mineralization came from. But
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, your goal, I mean, wouldn't that be wonderful to have a VMS story and a gold story all in one package?
Yeah, like obviously that would be a geologist's dream come true. So knock on wood on that one. But I think the property gives all the characteristics of that. And I don't want to forget about Rogue either because I feel like it doesn't get a lot of attention because people are really excited about the high grade, obviously for good reason. But Rogue, which is situated in between the two, Rush and Ranger, right around that eye structure. We hit, I think it was 530 ppb of gold in the soil, which makes it top 2 percentile in the world for gold in soil. So with that and some of the lower grade in the previous core, I think we're on the cusp of something there as well. And you mentioned before like folds and hinges. It looks to be like there's a couple of those going on around Rogue. So how we're gonna, if we talk about logistics here of the drill program, we're float planing or ski planing in a few of like the drill equipment as we mobilize to reduce helicopter cost, and that's about 100 meters from Ranger. So Ranger will be, call it our easiest drill uh, our easiest part of the program logistically wise. So once we drill Ranger, then we'll fly over to Rush. We'll put two or three holes into Rush, and then once Rush is completed, we'll fly back to the center of the property, which is Rogue, and finish off the program there.
So in your geophysics don't really pick up gold. But what they do pick up is structure.
Yeah,
And that structure is your plumbing system or the path of least resistance that the fluids carrying the gold use as a path of least resistance. So I think what you're going to find is a really nice story on those structures I've been talking about and the hinge. But when it comes to VMS, geophysics are very good at picking up massive sulfides. So my guess is that you probably will see some really beautiful geophysical anomalies associated with where you've taken samples up there at Rush.
for sure. And we did release partial data, right? Because we had some of it covered. And by the looks of it, the conductor underneath Rush looks to be anywhere from, call it 800 meters to 1,000 meters in length. So that could be quite significant if that was all mineralized.
Or it could be a series of it could be a series of lenses, VMS lenses. So
Yeah.
because that's a pretty darn good sized geophysical anomaly, but who knows? Maybe it's all one big VMS. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah, and look, once we do get the data back in maps, like we only have the raw data right now, but once
Right.
the maps are made, we'll probably put out a PR so everyone can see that, and then we'll get Garrett on here again and get him to actually talk about the maps, and we'll get him to do it from site actually. That'll be fun.
That'll be awesome.
Right from either the cabin or near the lake there, and they got a really good setup in Mississippi. It's probably considered luxury for most geos at this point, until we build a camp right on site, which obviously we'd hope to do in the summertime.
So, okay, so we got the priority or we got the schedule drilling to start in the next week, 10 days. It'll start at Ranger, the high grade gold discovery and expansion of that and drilling around it to figure that out. Then Rush and then Rogue, right?
Yep, yep.
And how's the cash position, Jordan, for funding all this?
Yeah, no, we're looking really good with a few warrant exercises and that fun stuff. We're about 4.5 million in the treasury still. So we've been very frugal with how we spend money, and our motto has always been putting it right in the ground. I don't know if you remember, but basically on day one of trading, which was about a year ago, we were already the drills were basically turning in week one, and even when we raised our seed round over 2 years ago, we pretty much spent it all on the geophysics, right? So we in this exploration business, the only way to be successful is actually spending the money in the ground. And I know some businesses would be like, "Wow, you guys spend so much money," but actually, if it's in the ground, it's what it's for.
Well, I think it's a combination actually, Jordan, because there's so many options out there for investors that marketing is. I used to just focus on drilling, but I've come to appreciate the importance of marketing. You need to get the story out there, because I've seen some good projects that basically nobody pays any attention to because they don't do any marketing. So you're a young guy, and I think you appreciate the digital marketing. And the beauty of digital marketing is it's not really that expensive. Look at you and me. I'm in Mexico, you're up in Canada, and we're on Zoom recording this, and then we'll upload it to YouTube.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Where we do spend our money on marketing, we're very strategic with people like yourself as well on YouTube, experienced newsletter writers. You have your website as well, and really putting that money to get the message out there to the audience so they actually understand it as well. It's one thing to tell everyone about Ramp Metals, but we want them to realize that, okay, they made one of the top gold intercepts in the world. And on top of that, they have this really good land package with multiple structures.
Informing your audience is good for the current shareholders because they're the supply, they hold the supply. And it's also good for bringing new shareholders on, which is the demand. And you guys were really, really unusually lucky to make a grassroots discovery and hit such spectacular grades with your first and only drill hole into that program. I got a lot of gray hairs in this business, Jordan, and I've drilled a lot of holes, as you can see there with that was from a drill program I ran in Mexico. And uh, what is also exciting is that you came out of the box as a new publicly traded company, made that discovery, and so you were able to raise money and keep your share structure nice and tight. That all of that put together, it really doesn't happen very often, Jordan.
Yeah, I think the stars definitely aligned for us well. Like you said, we made that hit and then we were able to raise money. It's unfortunate a lot of times companies might get a sniff of something and then have to raise when their stock is lower, right?
Right?
But once we made the hit, we went from essentially 15 cents to 80 cents and then settled back around 55 cents. And that's where we raised the almost 5 million with Eric Sprott, Earth Labs, and a few other significant investors. And since then, obviously, we backfilled the story with more prospecting and this big drill program coming up. So we're splitting the treasury a bit on this drill program where we only want to spend about half of it now. So that gets us somewhere between 3,000, 5,000 meters of drilling, depending on what we see out there. And then we'll go into the summer and do a bigger prospecting program. Because, like, look, we were out there for 14 days and we made a brand new copper discovery, right? And that was essentially the first 14 days we ever had boots on the ground, other than like cutting drill pads before.
Well, I
So,
have a sneaky
yeah,
suspicion that you're going to see some really good stuff coming out of that Joe course. So, don't set that schedule in stone there, Jordan. I think you might be wanting to drill a little more than you're anticipating, but I
for sure.
appreciate the conservative. That's the nature of exploration.
Look, we go out there and we're conservative and we don't want to hype that up too much that we're going to drill too much. But if the guys are out there and they're seeing what they like, they're going to keep drilling. And we have a really good relationship with our field crew, which includes the drillers, who are also shareholders, and the catering company, which is part of the local community. So everyone, if they need to take a little break for a week or a couple days, they'll rotate some shifts, and we can stay out there longer if needed. We do have our permits for the entire year, right? So we can do this all now, or we can come back a couple weeks later.
So
The
they're
team's
1 year
ready to go.
permits, is that the deal, Jordan?
Yeah, this one's a 1 year permit.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're gonna do probably in the next month is submit for 2 year permits. This permit allows us to drill up to 20 holes, right? So right now that 5,000 meters is only, call it 10 to 15 holes, right? So if we drill 10 now, like we can do 5,000 and 5,000 if we had to, and still be under this same permit. And next year we're hoping to have the 2 year flexibility, and that's when we'll really be able to drill more than 10,000 in one program, right?
So is it a meterage permit? Like, are you
So
10,000 meters?
this one is it was an amended permit on zones. So if you can later pull up our latest press release, we actually circled zones of drilling, and the permit gave us just locations and holes, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
amount of holes.
Okay, so can you go over 10,000 meters or are you confined?
Well, I think our holes aren't that deep, right?
Oh,
So,
okay, okay.
yeah, so we're drilling like 300 meters holes at the most. Maybe one will go like, or a couple will go 450. Unless it's open at depth, I guess you could keep
So you
going.
can get a quite a bit of hole in that programs.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay, good. Well, it's exciting times to be looking at a high grade gold deposit discovery. You've got gold trading near 3,000 and looking like it's going to go a lot higher. So, yeah, you're in a pretty unique position, Jordan. Not many grassroots high grade discoveries found with their first hole, especially in a company that has a nice tight share structure.
for sure. And that's something we always like we're mindful of, is the share structure and keeping that tight, with management owning about 47% right now, and friends and family another 20%. So really it is a good time to get the story out there, and get people excited for this drilling that's going to start happening in about a week here.
I know I am, Jordan, and I'm sure all your guys internally are as well.
For sure. Yeah. Look, when we got the permits last week there, I think it was they came in Thursday. Yeah, Garrett and Brett have just been thrilled and getting everything ready to go.
Well, here's to good luck with the truth machine like I have there. Hopefully, you guys have a lot of good luck with it, and we'll be doing more of these in the not too distant future. I think in the next couple of weeks we'll do another one, Jordan.
Awesome. Thanks again for having me, Alan, and being so excited about the story. So
All right. Well, it doesn't take much more than 70 some grams of over 7 meters to get me excited, Jordan. But there you go, folks. As always, remember and keep in mind that this company is a sponsor and I produce this content for their benefit, but it also benefits my audience because sponsorship is how I get all of my content out there. But be aware of that bias. Companies don't pay me for my opinion. That comes from 30 years of exploration experience and having had sponsors like Gennon McDowell, who was the world exploration manager for Anglo, and my geophysicist mentors and geologist mentors were very talented as well. And that's what I base my decisions on, whether to pick a company or to have them as a sponsor. And I'm really excited about having Ramp as a sponsor because I think that this is going to emerge into a very exciting story. On that note, have a great day and we'll talk to you soon.